Okay, let's start this again. I've had a bit of a shocker here. First time doing a live stream. Right, intro. Unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. Yeah, first time getting used to this whole live stream thing. Okay, now we're going to post to YouTube, which is what I was trying to do, and then I realised I wasn't live because I hadn't pressed the simple go live button. So unbelievable. This is just that's a shocker. That is by yours truly. I've never streamed on YouTube before, so yeah, just not used to this. Right. Well, we got some things to talk about, don't we? We've got some things to talk about. Macon, hey, how's it going, my friend? Good to see you. Thanks for popping in. Yeah, we've definitely got some things to talk about. We're going to talk about, obviously, we're going to talk about Qatar and all of the stuff that went wrong there and what went right there for some people. You can tell that by the title. But first, I actually want to talk about something that's just been announced within the last half an hour or so. Well, cheers. That's good to hear, Macon. Good to hear that you're doing well. Thanks for coming in. I think I sent you this on Twitter, but I will. I'm going to sort of announce it again here. Is this? Sent to myself. Trill Sessions. Yes, Trill Sessions. This is the first of a series, a new series of Twitter Spaces that I'm going to be hosting alongside my man, my brother in arms, Cameron F1, and we're doing it with Lucky Sons. Now, you should know who Lucky Sons are by now. They were one of the 3 teams that were rejected for the new Formula One entry. They applied alongside Andretti, who were accepted. They also applied alongside Roden Carlin and Hitech. And, you know, I've had some chats with Steve Price, who's he's the chief content officer for them. He popped into one of my spaces a few weeks ago, and let's just say we've been talking. And, this has come about. We're going to be doing a chat with Steve and with Andy, who's one of the co-founders. We're going to be interviewing Lucky Sons, getting them to put their vision out there once more, and telling us what their aim is for Formula One. And, we're also going to let you, the listeners, come in and ask them questions as well. This is going to be an open-ended chat. Good to see you, Nigel. Good to see you. So this is going to be a live chat with Andy and Steve, talking all things Lucky Sons, not just all things Lucky Sons as well. We can chat F1 in general as well. It's Steve and Andy are F1 fans just as much as you and I are. So here he is, Cameron, my co-host for tomorrow night. As you can see, his lovely little logo down there at the bottom. I can't wait either, mate. It's going to be great. So it's going live 9 o'clock tomorrow night, in UK time. When I say 9 o'clock UK time, that's about 4 o'clock Eastern. And you're going to get a chance to, first of all, listen to Andy, Steve, myself and Cameron chop it up, talk about Lucky Sons, talk about F1. But also, afterwards, you guys are going to get a chance to ask them questions. And that's what Lucky Sons is all about. It's all about talking to fans and bringing you guys along with them on the journey that they want to embark on. So I think this is a really, really fantastic thing they're doing. I feel incredibly humbled to be a part of this. Also alongside Cameron as well. Just under a year ago, just over a year ago was the first time I went into one of Cameron's spaces. Just under a year ago was the first time I appeared on the Shakedown. Beginning of this season, I started hosting spaces with Rory, and now I'm here hosting a space with a team that actually applied for Formula One. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. I can't believe it. It's yeah, it's amazing how these things work, and a huge thank you to Lucky Sons, to Steve and Andy for asking me to do it, and also I'm sure Cameron will agree with that as well. That we both feel very humbled to be getting this opportunity and talk. Just chatting up F1 with like-minded people like we normally do on Twitter Spaces anyway. So so more details about that. So as I said, I've just shared this on my Twitter. It's happening at 9 o'clock UK tomorrow. Very much looking forward to it. Hang on, what are you saying, Cameron? That application is not cheap either. USD 300k. I don't know what you mean by that. I'm just using OBS, fella. If that's what you mean, I don't know. So that is the session tomorrow. I'll talk about it again later on once we've got a few more people in, and we can chat about it a bit more. But yeah, that is happening tomorrow, 9 o'clock. Trill Sessions, episode 1. I think this is going to be sort of a monthly or bi-monthly thing. I'm not entirely sure just yet. We're going to see how tomorrow goes and make a call from there. Right. Oh, gone there too early. You didn't see that. So yeah, so we're going to talk about some of the big talking points from Qatar. And look, I've already spoken at length about the whole Mercedes thing on the shakedown. That's why I'm leaving. Oh, I see, Cameron. The F1 application alone costs 300k. Yeah, I know. That's big money. That's big money that we're talking about. But we'll keep our powder dry for tomorrow. So we'll keep our powder dry for tomorrow. We're going to talk about some of the big talking points from Qatar. I'm going to talk about Mercedes. I'm going to do a bit later, but I've kind of given already my views on the shakedown, this week's shakedown. I make it very clear how I stand on that, and some of the afters that happened with that as well. Actually, you know what? As Cameron's here as well, what I'm going to do, this is going to require multitasking on my part, is I'm going to get a link to that vid. Because if you haven't already seen it, what are you doing with yourself? It's a great chat, as always, with Cam and Shez. There it is. So that is the latest episode of the Shakedown, where we talk a lot about Lewis and George's incident, turn 1 in the Grand Prix. But we are going to start with Max Verstappen, the newly crowned 3-time world champion. Look, that's been inevitable all season. All season. We knew that he was going to win the title from testing, but he's finally sealed it. He did it in the sprint race, finishing second behind Oscar Piastri, who we're going to talk about. But I think we need to spend a moment sort of appreciating what Max Verstappen has done this season. He has been incredible. The consistency has just been unreal. Unreal from... Hang on. Quick glass of water. That's the perils of doing things live. Very balanced discussion, says Macon. Yeah, that's what I love about being on the Shakedown, is that Cam and Shez and I can come at things potentially from 3 different viewpoints and then kind of chat things through and almost come to a consensus or just agree to disagree, but have a fair, balanced and respectful conversation about anything Formula 1 related, which is great, and I love doing it. Where was I? Max Verstappen. Yes, Max Verstappen. So, I mean, look, he's been unbelievable this season. Red Bull have been unbelievable this season as well. Just everything from strategy to pit stops to... And just technically, they're so far ahead. The scary moment was, for me, was actually during testing, and I should have paid more attention to this, but I was so consumed in my desire to see Mercedes do better that I kind of didn't really see the significance of this comment. But Max had just, if you remember, he did 3 straight sessions and he pumped in something like 300 laps. Unbelievable levels that Max was putting together. And he was asked, and he just said, he was asked, what What do you feel is better on the RB19 in comparison to the RB18, which of course won 15, 16, 17 races last year? And Max just went everything. That should have been the warning shot to us to be like, oh, hang on a minute, this is going to be a dominant season. And he just went with it and ran from testing all the way through to that sprint race in Qatar. It was never in doubt that Max was going to win the championship. I know Checo flirted with a championship battle at some point, but for me it was never a question of whether there could be a title fight this year. It was obvious that Max was going to be a 3-time champion, and just some of the moments that have been highlighted and we can talk about is, well, First things first. Monaco. That was a significant moment. That qualifying where he was 2 tenths down going into the final sector. It was done. It was never supposed to happen. And the next thing you know, he's on pole. Just incredible performance by Max Verstappen. Absolutely incredible. And then you think of Miami where he made the mistake in qualifying, which is probably one of the last mistakes he's made all season. Comes from 9th on the grid to beat his teammate Perez, who started on pole and then beats him by about 5 seconds. That was the moment, really, the championship was done. Once the story of 2023 has been told in its fullest, you always look. There's always a moment in any championship, even if it's a dominant one, where you go, that's it. And Miami was that moment where Max just put his foot down on Checo's throat and said, no chance. No title fights for you this year, sunshine. Not happening. And the final moment for me where I think Max really showcased how his brilliance was Suzuka, that qualifying lap. Oh my God. What a qualifying lap that was. It was almost perfect. The first sector, I think, was the perfect first sector in this generation of cars. Just incredible car placement. He couldn't do anything wrong. It was amazing. He'd done a 129.0, and then you got his team on the radio going, oh Max, you can't do a 128. You can't do a 128. And he's like, I'll fucking show you. Does a 128. Incredible qualifying performance, and he needed that, particularly after coming off Singapore. I think a few people have thought, oh, maybe the technical directors have pegged Red Bull back, and Max just shut that down instantly with a lap worthy of being considered one of the best, not the all-time greatest, I've said this before, but just an incredible lap from Max Verstappen. It was an extraordinary lap. And those, for me, were kind of the 3 big moments where Max showcased how good he was. And obviously, when you talk about 3-time world champions, you think of the likes of Senna. You think of the other Brazilian champion who shall not be named because he said some really horrible racist stuff. You think of Jack Brabham. You think of others as well. You think of the likes of Fangio. You think of Schumacher, Prost, Vettel. All these guys have got to 3 titles. But what Max has done, which makes this even more special, is the fact that he has won 3 straight. Not many have done that. It's a very small club. Fangio, Schumacher, Vettel, Hamilton, and now Verstappen. 5 drivers. 5 drivers have done that. Incredible. We can talk about 21, we can talk about 22, but the history books will show that Max Verstappen won 3 world championships in a row. And that is extraordinary. Absolutely extraordinary. Alan, if only Lewis had a car to challenge him. Mate, if anyone had a car to challenge him, honestly, I think that's been one of the big disappointments of the season, that nobody's really been able to challenge him. Even Checo in equal machinery couldn't challenge him because he just couldn't get to grips with that car. I mean, it's very, very disappointing that Checo couldn't mount a challenge, but it is what it is, unfortunately. I mean, I'm not sure many drivers could have gone into that RB19 and challenged Max. I think maybe only Lewis and maybe only Fernando. I don't think George and Lando are ready for that. Not even sure Charles ready for that yet. Or at that level. They haven't shown me that they're at that level. But I think Yeah, we're going to talk about Checo, actually. We'll get to Checo a bit later, but yeah, I think no one was challenging Max this year, because we know that Checo over the course of a season just wouldn't be able to sustain a challenge, and he proved that this year, and his performances of late have been absolutely shocking. So, but one thing that has come about with this is, where do you position Max in the greats of Formula One? Now, doing a comparison like that is always incredibly hard, because so many of us come from different eras. I started watching Formula One in 2007. Now, I still have a list. I have a top 10 list. Some of them are older drivers who I wouldn't have watched because they were racing before I was born, but I've seen footage of them and I understand their history and their stats. And there are others that are on the list because I have seen them drive, and they are incredible. There is a notable omission, and I want to see how quickly you guys spot it. But before I reveal my top 10 list, I'm just going to come to a comment from Macon. Is this going to, because Checo to retire? I'll wait on you. Yeah, we'll get to that one. Pinch of salt required. Slight spoiler ahead of that one, but yeah, let's go to it. Here is BaxtyB's top 10 list, top 10 drivers of all time. That's the wrong thing. Here we go. Okay, so as you can see, that is it. I'm waiting to see the names come through about who I've missed off this list. But number 10, Fernando Alonso. Number 9, Max Verstappen. 8, Niki Lauda. 7, Jackie Stewart. 6, Jim Clark. 5, Alain Prost. 4, Juan Manuel Fangio. 3, Ayrton Senna. 2, Michael Schumacher. And 1, the GOAT, Sir Lewis Hamilton. Now, let's start with my positioning of Max. That's who we're talking about, of course. So I've got Max in at number 9. Macon's got it. I've got Max at 9 because, and this is only a holding position for Max. Max has only had one season of real competition. Like, yeah, okay, he and Leclerc kind of danced around each other a little bit last year, but Ferrari just faded so quickly that it was obvious Max was going to win the title quite early on last year. And look, Max went toe-to-toe with Lewis. We all know what happened. I'm not going to go over it. But he still showed during the course of that season that he had the minerals to be able to compete at the very highest level when the pressure is on. Yeah, he made some mistakes, but the Max Verstappen now, having spent 2 years dominating and getting used to things, he's going to be a much tougher prospect to beat. Yeah, I know Cameron has spoken openly about being scared about what Max could do in the future against the likes of Charles Leclerc, George Russell, Lando Norris, a rematch with Lewis Hamilton perhaps. So the reason I got Max just that little bit lower is because he hasn't faced that level of competition. And you look at the guys in front of him, they had stacks of competition. Niki Lauda had James Hunt, Alain Prost. He had those are his two main rivals, and he definitely raced against Andretti and Fittipaldi and stuff. Jackie Stewart had Sever, he had Hill, he had Clark, he had Jochen Rindt, he had Fittipaldi towards the end of his career as well. I mean, just incredible levels of competition, and Jackie won 3 world titles as well. Incredible statistics. Then you've got Jim Clark, who many from that older generation still feel is maybe the best of all time. I mean, double world champion with Lotus. No GR on here. Fake. Come on, Emmanuel. Come on. Come on, man. Come on. You know why he's not here. He's not there yet. But yeah, Jim Clark, double world champion. Won in 63 and 65. Was just so dominant in those Lotus cars. And he could win races just gone. Just incredible. I'll get to you, AJ. I see your comment. Once I've gone through my list, I'll get to you. And again, Jim Clark had the same level of competition as Jackie Stewart, and also they drove in eras where you could lose your life, and of course Jim Clark did lose his life. Nürburgring GP2 or F2 car, F2 race, but Jim Clark went toe-to-toe with some of the greats of his era and beat them and could beat them easily. The likes of Graham Hill, Jackie Stewart, John Surtees as well, just dominating, and he, getting himself in there with the with Colin Chapman, it was a match made in heaven. It really was. Number 5, Alain Prost, the Professor. You just look at his rivals. They're just so far down. You just down your arm. You've got Piquet, Mansell, Senna. Not quite Schumacher. That was a bit before his time. He was a bit before Schumacher, but then he had like Keke Rosberg in the early 80s, Alan Jones, Reutemann, René Arnoux, Gilles Villeneuve, Pironi. He was part of that 3-way title fight in the last race in '86, and he won it out of nowhere. He wasn't expected to. Prost, just absolute genius behind the wheel. Fangio, 5 world titles, and in that era as well, when drivers would die a lot more often. Crazy. Sterling Moss was one of his big rivals. He also had Farina and Ascari. And yet he could beat all of them. It's just incredible. And winning 4 titles in a row in the 50s, levels, absolute levels. I think if the world were to end in about 10 years' time, Fangio would still be top 5. I don't ever foresee a world where Fangio is not in the top 5, just because of how much of a pioneer he was in the sport. 3, Senna. Now, I know what you're thinking. Why have I got a 3-time world champion above a 4-time world champion and a 5-time world champion? But I had to go for Senna. There was a mysticism around Senna. Even now. I was 3 years old or 2.5 when Senna died, and going back and watching his stuff is it's spellbinding to me. Particularly 88 Monaco, but Donington 93. You watch these clips of him, and he can do things in a Formula One car, and you're just going, what? How's he doing that? He can he could find levels of grip, and you feel emotion watching him. But oh my word, incredible. And it's also a major case of what if, because obviously his career was cut short. And would he have beaten Schumacher in 94? I think personally he would have done, because I think he and Williams would have got their act together. And he could have gone on and won the title in 94, 95, 96. He could have been a 6-7-time world champion, and Michael Schumacher would never have got to that tally. Speaking of Schumacher, we go to number 2. Schumacher's competition. Obviously, we had Senna, but then you had the likes of Damon Hill. You had David Coulthard, Mika Hakkinen, who was very unlucky to miss this list. I've seen somebody mention him. AJ, I think it was. Mika. Mika Hakkinen was was unfortunate to not make this list. But he also had Alonso, and Barrichello wasn't really competition, but he was there. Montoya and Ralph. Ralph was handy behind the wheel. Obviously not as good as Michael, but he was handy. And Michael changed the game. Michael took Formula One from the old era into the modern era. Absolutely into the modern era, with fitness, with technology, and he went to Ferrari and turned them into winners. He was winning at Benetton and he'd helped turn them into winners, but to go to Ferrari and look at what we know about Ferrari now. If Michael Schumacher was around now and building Ferrari into a winning team, think about the epicness of that. It would be amazing. And then, of course, number 1, Lewis Hamilton, Raikkonen, who I forgot with Michael. Jesus, Raikkonen, Massa, Alonso, Vettel, Webber, Button, Verstappen, Leclerc, Bottas, Rosberg. He's just driven against so many of the best drivers of the last, of the 10 to 15 years, and he's beaten them all. He's not beaten Max in a one-on-one. I still think he can. It'll be tough, but I think he can. And I still have confidence he can get his 8th. So that very long-winded explanation is why I've got Max at number 9, just because I want to see him have more competition. I want to see him go up against Norris, Hamilton, Russell, Piastri, who we're going to talk about shortly. Who else? And maybe some of the guys coming through, maybe like an Ollie Behrman, Leclerc, Sainz. Just go up against these guys in title fights and see. And see how he gets on. Right, let's get to some of your comments because I've seen quite a few of them come in. Macon. So okay. The big elephant in the room here is not Mika Hakkinen. It's the fact that I don't have Sebastian Vettel on here, and this is something that I feel quite strongly about, and is that Seb was very, very good in a very particular set of circumstances. Brilliantly fast in qualifying. If this was a qualifying top 10, Seb would be in here near the top because his qualifying speed was outrageous. Outrageous how good he was over one lap, and then he could get into a race and just dominate from the front. But Seb could never quite come from anywhere on the grid. He only won from the top 4, and also we saw mental fragility from Seb, particularly in those 2 title fights with Lewis in sorry, I'm seeing the comments pouring. But, in those 2 title fights with Lewis, Seb really... 2017, people will say it was Ferrari. Yes. But. Singapore, go and watch that race start. That was on Seb. And then you look at 2018 and the implosion that came from him with the spins and the crashing out in Hockenheim and everything else. So Seb, GOAT driver, well, not GOAT, but great driver. He's number 11. If I could have a number 11 here, I'd have Seb, 12, Mika, and probably Nigel Mansell at 13. But honestly, that's why Seb hasn't got in. I haven't spoken about Fernando. Fernando's just a really crafty driver. He's somebody that I love watching, and him at 10 over Seb is personal preference for me. Okay, I hated Fernando in 2007. Which British F1 fan didn't hate Fernando in 2007? We all hated him. But 2010, and in particular 2012, when Fernando dragged that absolute tractor of a Ferrari to within a few points of a world title, that's how good that guy is. And I think if he'd got that 3rd world title, he would be a lot higher up this list. But Fernando had great competition as well. Obviously Schumacher, Raikkonen. It's just incredible stuff. Right, let's get back to the comments. So Max at 9. Yeah, well, I've explained that one, Cameron. BaxtyB, how on earth do you leave Mika out and Seb but not include Max and Max and Fernando? I think I've covered that one. I think Alonso 9, Verstappen 10, Luke. Yeah, Luke, that's just personal preference, actually. I actually prefer watching Max, particularly in the wet. I think it's Max's wet driving skills that have got him above Fernando, and I moved Max above Fernando after Monaco because of the way he just controlled those conditions. When it was raining and then it wasn't raining, and he was keeping it on the road and just driving really well in those horrible conditions. Beautiful. Pete, Aaron, lol, Macon. I think you might need to explain that one. My history sort of before, but 80s is a bit sketchy, and then when you get into the 70s, 60s, and 50s, I'm a bit like, I need to research that. AJ, I have him on 6. Fangio, but I hear you. I may have to adjust my list. Well, it's your list at the end of the day. If you want to keep him there, that's fine. Razor, the truth about Senna is there was so much unfinished business that could have gone either way, but leans towards doing even more magic with his time left in the sport. Yeah, that's exactly what I said. It's the what could have been with Senna. It was 3 titles, 40-odd race wins, 50 poles or something, and how much more would he have had? One of my favourite images of Senna was when he won in Brazil for the first time, and his gears had gone, and he drove around that track like just physically in pain, because he was having to drive the car so hard. And when he lifts the trophy, you can see the exertion upon him. That was extraordinary stuff. Agree with Razor, 100%. Ralph equals Crash Bandicoot. Yeah, he was definitely a lot more crash prone than his brother was, for sure. Bottas, lol. Okay, here's the thing about Bottas, right? Because go back to 2020, and obviously Mercedes wiped the floor with everyone in 2020. Hamilton always said that the reason he was as quick as he was because he had Bottas chasing him. Yeah, and he said he had to be that good, otherwise Bottas would beat him. And in some respects, that's true. I think particularly in qualifying, maybe not so much in the race, but in qualifying, Bottas was always there or thereabouts with Lewis. He was, Bottas definitely a better one-lap driver than a GP driver. AJ, if Michael was around today and involved in the Ferrari backroom stuff, it would not be a question that he would be whipping everyone into shape. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I get you. Cameron, like the video, fella. Yeah, please do like the video. Hit the like button. If you aren't subscribed, please subscribe. We're on 147. Somebody subscribed. Whoever you are, you're a beautiful person. Thank you. That's very much appreciated. Thank you, but let's see if we can get to 150 by the end of the stream. That'll be really lovely. I got my Bearman mention, but now Mika not being on this list is despicable, my good sir. It's all opinions. It's all opinions at the end of the day. And retweet unless you have less wheel knowledge than Nicholas Latifi. Oh. Wow. Okay, BaxtyB, please explain Mika more because I don't get it. In terms of completion, ability, racecraft and speed, man was elite. Didn't have the best car either. Oh, he did in 98. For sure he had the best car in 98. Well, certainly early on in 98. 99, I think it was a toss of the coin. But he was the difference maker for McLaren, for sure. The movie... Oh, okay. Fair enough. Thanks, Mac, on the movie. +2 championships, all that alone sets him superior to Fernando by far. I've watched more of Fernando than Mika, so again, it's just that personal preference for me. It's strange to see Bottas pushing Lewis, but Checo can't seem to push Max. Yeah, we'll get to that one, Macon. 10 people watching, 9 likes, 1 person has less wheel knowledge than GoTV. Cameron has spoken. I don't make the rules. Yeah, he's spoken. So there's BaxtyB's top 10 list. Just there it is for you all to see. I know there's going to be some healthy disagreement about it. It's just one of those, really. I think these lists are always subjective, and as long as we can have healthy debate about it and not sort of try and come down on everybody. I mean, I'm sure that somebody for somebody from the Maserati might come in and be like, "How dare you have Max low as 9? He's the GOAT." There's every possibility that Max, by the end of his career, could be the GOAT. Absolutely. And I think, he could well be the greatest of all time once all's said and done with him. But right now, he's not. And I want him to go into competition with some other drivers. You think of the greats of other sports. You think of Novak Djokovic, who for me is, as much as it pains me to say it, I think is the greatest male tennis player of all time. I thought that was you, AJ. I thought that was you. You think of Djokovic. You think of the likes of... He's gone up against... oh my God. My brain's gone. Federer, Nadal, Murray, and also now Alcaraz. Elevated by that competition. He could have won 24 slams, but just beaten nobodies every time in the final. But instead, he's had to go through his two contemporaries, Andy Murray, who was just a step behind, and Alcaraz, who could go up against them and could destroy them and could break all of their records if he goes into a dominant period. Then you have the likes of, you think of football and you think of Ronaldo and Messi spurring each other on. I don't think if Ronaldo and Messi played at different eras, they wouldn't be as good as they were. They were driving each other on. Go back even earlier, one thing my dad always likes to talk about, Papa BaxtyB, is Coe and Over in the 80s, always pushing each other. There's a story that Seb Coe did 2 training sessions on Christmas Day because he knew Steve Ovett would only do 1. It's amazing. And then you think of maybe team rivalries. You think of Arsenal and Man United. You think of Liverpool and City. You think of England and France in rugby, a very traditional battleground. You think of France versus New Zealand. You think of Ireland versus New Zealand, Ireland versus France. All these rivalries that are in there, and you get elevated by your competition. The Ashes. What a summer we had of cricket, and that's where I want Max to excel. I would back Max to beat most of the drivers in equal machinery. To be frank, I would back him to beat most of them. Even not in a Red Bull. But I think let's say McLaren have a car capable of challenging for the championship next year. You got Piastri and Norris, who are superb, and I think could challenge Max, but with everything you look at everything from team to pit stops to strategy. I would back Max to beat both Oscar and Lando next year. If that's how it comes down to it. Batman needs a Joker. Absolutely, Cameron. Nailed. Absolutely spot on. He does win comment of the week. Yeah, he does win comment of the week. Okay, let's talk. Well, actually, we're just going to go back to this. I'm going to give this another plug. So, yeah, so if you haven't seen this on Twitter, this is happening tomorrow, 9 o'clock UK time. Trill sessions. It's going to be a session with Lucky Sons, one of the teams that were rejected by the FIA, and one of the co-founders and chief commercial officer Andy is going to be on, and then you've got Steve Price, who some of you may know. He's popped into my space a couple of times, and he's going to be there as well. And honestly, it's going to be a chat to talk to them about Lucky Sons, co-hosted by Cameron, who is here in the chat as well. So yeah, it's going to be a chat to chance them about Lucky Sons. Find out their vision, talk things F1 in general, and then we are going to open the floor, and you guys are going to find out all about. You can ask the question. If you don't feel we've asked a question that you want an answer to, you get the chance to ask them. So, yeah, incredibly exciting. Very much looking forward to that tomorrow. So 9 o'clock UK time. Go to my Twitter. It's in the description below. BaxtyB, or just at BaxtyB. You can see it on the post there. Also, go and follow Cameron. If you're following me and not following Cameron, what on earth are you doing? But yeah, go follow Cameron as well. And 9 o'clock UK time tomorrow, and you can listen all about Lucky Sons and just general F1 chat as well. And the important point, and I will repeat it, you get the chance to ask them a question, which is how much would we love to do a Twitter space with somebody from Mercedes or Ferrari or Red Bull? Now, I know Lucky Sons aren't an F1 team, but yeah, for now, but you'd love to be able to do it. Yeah, we get to with the debriefs, but every question gets vetted, whereas you're just going to go, we're going to say, look, here's a question, have at it. Who would love to have that opportunity to ask that? And Lucky Sons are putting themselves out there, and I think that's incredibly powerful from them to do that. Right, before we move on to PIASTRI, I'm just going to come back to some of your comments. Alan, Bottas done his job as a second driver, imperative in a championship contending team. Look at Perez just now, he can't cope. Minute there's another challenger, RB is in trouble. I don't know about that, actually. I mean, Bottas went missing in 21. He was brilliant in 2018. Absolutely brilliant. Did the job perfectly then. But 21, he did go missing. Whereas Checo was there in 21. I mean, everyone forgets that how important that little fight was between him and Lewis in Abu Dhabi, because essentially Checo prevented Lewis from getting a free pit stop, and it allowed Max to pit and keep Lewis on those old tyres, because he would have lost track position. If Checo had just let Lewis breeze by and Lewis pulled out a bigger lead, he would have been able to cover off that Verstappen pit stop. But because Checo held him up and allowed Max to catch up, it was so Checo. I think Checo could do a job for Red Bull if there's a title fight next year, if he's there. We'll get to it. Bold prediction, but I do not think Max does well under pressure. End of 21 was proof of that. Brake check, dirty driving, podium walk-offs, etc. Yeah, I think we need to see that again from Max. That's kind of the one slight question mark. But I think the fact that he was able to last the season is testament to his mental strength, and I think he's only going to be better. Many say he's comfortable with the uncomfortable, but I really don't see it. I think they mean that in terms of driving. That Red Bull is apparently quite difficult to drive, and he can master it. It's like, the best example is mastering a really hard character in a fighting game. Like I play Tekken. I haven't played it for a while, but I do play Tekken, and if you can master a Mishima character, holy hell, like that's a level of ability that is up there. So AJ, I agree with you, Razor. He's a brilliant driver, but I still feel his weakness is where he's going to be under constant pressure. Again, we have to see. He does well when everything goes his way, but a flappy DRS, issues with carbine, etc. We can see him start getting nervous, anxious over the radio. All drivers do it. Look at Rosberg. Jeez. People forget how long Max has been in the sport already. Alan, yeah. Absolutely agree with that. Max has been around a long time. He's been bred for this almost in a way. Macon sounds like a great cast. It is a great cast. Yeah, you take out BaxtyB. Don't want to talk about that guy, but yeah, no, it's going to be a great chat. It's going to be a great chat. Great chat. Like and share this video now, otherwise Red Bull will never lose another race ever again. Guys, I don't make the rules. When the rules are when Cameron says it, it's true. So yeah, like and share, please do. Please do, and subscribe if you're not subscribed. Hello, Steve. How you doing? Good to see you. Yeah. Good to see you. That is Steve, who will be on the space tomorrow. Just pointing that one out. So yeah. Okay. Is this the right one? Yes. Here we are. We're going to talk about this guy right here, Oscar Piastri, because I don't think this guy is getting the props, or nearly enough props right now. He has been incredible this season. Absolutely incredible. And he deserves all the respect in the world. For me, the best rookie season since Lewis in 2007, in terms of what he's been able to achieve. Obviously, Lewis fought for a title in 2007. Oscar hasn't done that. But yeah, Oscar went into a car that was crap. We all saw that first race in Bahrain. It was terrible. And he and Lando together have dragged that team to where they are now, where actually we can sit here and go, hold on a sec, these guys might be title contenders. And I'm just like, holy hell. Okay, right, McLaren are back in the big time, and McLaren took a risk with signing this guy because they pinched him from Alpine. They're getting rid of Danny Rick, who, let's be frank, Danny was terrible when he was at McLaren, apart from that one weekend in Monza where he looked like his old self. But Oscar's done everything right. I think his weaknesses at the moment are quali. I think he is just that little bit slower than Lando right now. And also tyre management in races, which he's already getting better than. But it's this kid is incredible. Look what he did in Qatar. He took pole in the sprint race, and look, on pace. The conditions on that Saturday were very windy. Even Max was struggling in those conditions, but Oscar got the better of them, and that was impressive in itself. And Lando made a mistake, and I think Lando would have got the pole. But here's where things get interesting. Look at what he did in that race. He gets overtaken by George Russell on softer tyres, but he doesn't panic too much. He just sits and he knows that those tyres are going to come back to him. He trusts that those tyres are going to come back to him. And he delivers. And he overtakes George Russell and he goes on to win. And actually, I was worried for him because when Max got past George with a few laps to go, I thought, oh, here we go. Max is going to check. I've read this book before. We all know what's going to happen. Max is going to chase him down. He's only a few seconds behind. And yet, somehow, didn't happen. He held him off. Brilliant stuff from Oscar Piastri. Took a win in Formula 1, but he's not a Grand Prix. He's not a winner. I hate... This is why the sprint races could get messy, because it's like, oh yeah, Oscar won, but he didn't. Like, George Russell had the opportunity to basically put that right the next day, so that's why it didn't really matter so much with George, because he went and did it, and because he started on pole and won from pole and everything else. But because Oscar had a crap qualifying on the Friday, a win for him was less likely. So, yeah, feel a bit annoyed about that. Feel about cheesed off. We're going to change the scene here. Feel about cheesed off about that for Oscar's perspective. But I think that Grand Prix win is coming sooner rather than later. Be it later this year or next year, early next year, if that car is competitive. So, I think Oscar Piastri's superb. He's really justified the hype. I wasn't so sure about him. But he's proven himself to be the real deal. And look, Mark Webber, he's got a great mentor in Mark Webber. Mark Webber, for me, one of the most underrated drivers of the mid 2000s to the early 2010s. He was superb. Was the lead Red Bull driver going into that title decider in 2010. It wasn't Vettel, it was Mark. So yeah, very determined, very gritty performer, and I say gritty because his name is Aussie Grit on Twitter. But yeah, superb driver Mark Webber. Really hoping that he can have some success at the McLaren. I've seen some blasphemy comments. I need to read through this. Right, Steve. I think he's a young Verstappen capable of a future champion. He might get there before Norris. Orcs. Potentially, Steve. Potentially. I don't actually think you're wrong. Macon, wow, before Lando. Interesting. Cameron, pump the brakes, Steve. That's blasphemy. Well, yeah. Webber has a point to prove against Red Bull, and Piastri might just be it. Yeah, potentially. Alan agrees with Steve. I like Norris, but the last few races, a rookie has gotten the better of him. Yeah, I don't know. I think Lando's maybe just trying a bit too hard, like George was at points last year and points this year as well. But before, I think Lando just needs a win and he'll be fine. Oscar also looked after his tyres and only finished behind Verstappen 4 seconds, 6 seconds. I wouldn't read too much into that simply because of the fact that the race was kind of controlled by tyre settings and everything else. I mean, Cameron, he was out to lunch by that point, but because of the tyres and everything else, and the conditions they're in as well, it was. I'd like to see how close Oscar could get at Kota, for example. That would be a really interesting one. Oscar Piastri, I think he's the real deal. He's proving it. He had a slow start to the season, but now he's there. He's had 2 podiums in Grand Prix, and he's had a win in a sprint race. If you'd offered that to him at the start of the season, particularly after Bahrain, he would have ripped your hand off. He really would. Macon, no matter how you slice the pie, there are several excellent young drivers in need of a quick car. Yeah. Checo Perez is kind of the domino holding everything, holding the chaos back. When he goes, we're going to see a driver market like no other. It's going to be mad. There's going to be people, because lots of contracts come up at the end of next year as well. So we're going to see quite a lot of movement. So it'll be interesting to see how that one works out. Okay, next up we have got... One second. I think you can hear me now. Don't worry. Hello, I'm back. Okay, so the issue is this scene here is a new scene in OBS, and I hadn't set up my mic. I'd only set up the camera in the picture. I forgot to set up the mic. Idiot settings, BaxtyB. That is my fault. You can all put laughs at me in the chat. I think that's probably the best way to do it. But thanks for letting me know about that. Oh, geez. First time doing a live stream and it's gone horribly wrong for me. Jeez. Right, okay. Hang on, Alan's just put this comment in. I don't think Norris has done that great against his teammates in F1, apart from Ricciardo obviously, even then Daniel got the win, but now Piastri seems like he cracks under pressure. Thank you, Macon. I appreciate that. Alan, I don't know. I don't. I need to see more evidence on that. Perhaps he is somebody that cracks under pressure, but yeah, he made a lot of mistakes in Qatar. It happens, and I think yeah, I don't know. I need to see more of him at the front of the grid. He's always kind of been in that midfield area and sort of trying to get up there. I mean, yeah, he did make a mistake in Russia in 21, but I think that was a very difficult situation to read, and I don't blame him for trying to do what he did. And I think Lewis was wanting to do the same, but Mercedes actually were the ones that said, no, Lewis, come on, in you come, and that's what won Lewis that race. So, yeah, I think if he'd been a bit bolder with pitting, then he may well have won that race in Russia, for sure. Verstappen would embarrass Norris. Yeah, I think so, because I don't think that Red Bull is set up to Lando's strengths. I think Lando likes a rear car, likes to control. He likes a rear pointed car rather than a front pointed car like Max does. So, I think Lando would struggle if he went to Red Bull, which is why partly I don't want him to go there. Okay, back to Mercedes. So yes, we had the clash. It was Lewis's fault. A racing incident which was Lewis's fault, I think is probably the best thing to say. It's disappointing for sure. To see the clash between them, and this has been bubbling up for a while. I think they were always going to occupy the same bit of track. I think the Mercedes debrief kind of cleared this up well. They explained why Lewis needed to be on on the tyres that he was on. His mediums were basically just a set of softs. He'd used up a set of mediums in the sprint race that left him a bit compromised. I don't think there were any team orders for turn one. I think it was just an unfortunate accident. I don't blame George at all. There was literally nowhere that George could go. I think Lewis was just too aggressive on the outside. I think he would have got past George. I think he was too keen to get to P1, and that's what cost him ultimately. So, yeah, disappointed in that for obviously for Mercedes. I think they'll move on from this. Lewis took full responsibility. Yeah, there was the PR friendly hug. I know some people are reading quite a lot into it and saying that Lewis, they don't like the fact that Lewis is doing that stuff. I fully disagree with that viewpoint. I think Lewis is one of the few drivers that will stick his hands up, and he's willing to take. Not willing. He will take responsibility for his accidents. Others won't. And I think Lewis knew what needed to be done, and he could probably see the online reaction and decided to try and nip it in the bud. So, yeah. Steve, the issue is the lack of team orders. Yeah. Do you mean... sorry, Steve, do you mean team orders generally or team orders in that instance? The clash seems like old news. Some will not let it go, but I agree, unfortunately, an accident. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Like, we've got to move on. We've got a triple header coming up. We've got to fight for P2. We've got to fight for P2 and the drivers, and we've got to get behind Lewis for that because Checo's so vulnerable right now. I'm not going to hold anyone accountable for being a sportsman. Absolutely, Macon. Thank you. Nipped in the bud right there. Perfect comment. George, let Lewis go. You'll get him. Oh, so for that instance, I think that's impossible to do in just one corner. I think maybe that you could say, right, Lewis is on a faster strategy right now, but you might get the chance to get past him later on. And I think George would accept that. I know he does come across like a bit of a whiny bitch sometimes on the radio, but that's just, I think that's just who George is. Racing drivers with their visors down are very different people. We've seen that all the time. So, yeah, it's that's just the way it is. I don't want to dwell too much longer on this because I've said my bit, but I think ultimately the right thing got done for the team. Well, not for the team, but they handled it the right way. We didn't get the awful picture that we got from Red Bull. Actually, I'm going to see if I can find that picture, because that picture's hysterically funny. Mark Webber. Oh my god. Sorry, I've just typed in Mark Webber, Sebastian Vettel, and somebody has put Mark Webber, Sebastian Vettel fanfiction. I am not going down that wormhole with you, but I'm just saying that was the top Google search when I put it in. Not just those two names. Fanfiction came first. Holy crap. Okay, post Turkey. Here we go. I want to see if I can find this awful picture that they did. Here we go. Can I go full screen with this? Right. I'll get to your comments in a minute, but yeah, let's just oh God, what? Let's see what it is. Yeah, this picture here. Isn't that one of the worst pictures? Also, it looks like Seb's wearing a bloody... looks like he's wearing a bleeding Toro Rosso jumper in that picture as well. But yeah, they just crashed in Turkey, and then, yeah, that came about. So, yeah. At least we didn't get that from George and Lewis. That would be awkward, wouldn't it? That would be very awkward. Right. Hang on, I need to do this. There we go. Oh, BaxtyB, what's going on here? Oh, there we go. We got there in the end. So yeah, we got that awful picture from Red Bull. Could you imagine if we got that? That would have been hilarious. Let's have a look. Some of these pics. Destroying a downhill Daniel, disillusioned Norris, and now have an actually competitive teammate, showing where he really is. I'm not a Lando fan generally, so I think Oscar's going to rub him out. Well, I hope he doesn't do that, JBH. Really hope he doesn't do that. Anyway, joking aside. What they get up to in their own time is their business. But yeah, no, potentially Oscar could beat him once all said and done with that teammate partnership. Alan, surely GR should have been aware Lewis would be on the attack. Was that not the whole point of putting him on the softs? Yes and no. So as I said, the team confirmed that his mediums were used and they would have been no better than a soft anyway, so it was better to put him on the softs. It's... Yeah, I think that... I think George would have known he was on the softs, but he was also trying not to go into the back of Max. There's really nothing George could have done in that situation. The creepy Merc video of Ham hugging Russ wasn't needed. I mean, Steve, that's what happens these days. You know it is. I mean, we got that awful video of Gasly and Ocon after Australia, basically just addressing the camera, pretending like they like each other. Akash, welcome to the stream, Akash. I think the team expected Lewis to just have a much better start after they saw George on the Saturday got away from Max and Lando before even reaching the corner. Okay, so George was on soft tyres, Max was on mediums on the Saturday. That's why that happened. So I wouldn't read too much into the Saturday. I just think they thought Lewis, they thought the softs were best for him. This is the most we've spoken about Webber in years. All good. Absolutely, yeah. I love Webber, enjoyed watching him in WEC. He was sensational at Porsche. He was, yeah, very much so. Maybe love was too much. I'll get my coat. Oh my god, you read my comment. Woohoo. Hey, absolutely. You've taken the time to come to my video. So, yeah. Just don't use the term rub him out. Don't use that term. It can be perceived the wrong way, particularly by this dirty singer brain right here. So that's all I really wanted to say on Merc, and we've kind of gone back to McLaren a little bit as well. But, a few other things that have come about. Let's talk about Checo Perez. Because there was this rumour that came out on Reddit yesterday, wasn't there, that this high-ranking executive from one of the big sponsors, particularly of Checo, said that he was going to retire at the end of the year, that basically Red Bull has said that apparently Red Bull have fired him, and he's going to announce his retirement at the Mexican Grand Prix. It's all right, JBH. I'll forgive you this one time. But yeah, no, I think... there has been this announcement from this rumour that's come about from this source that says that he's going to retire. Red Bull have already dismissed it. They've said it's not true. I personally tend to agree with that. I think that perhaps that's maybe a little premature. From what I understand, Checo's contract for 24 is pretty ironclad. And I think if there is going to be a driver change, that's one way for purple helmet Marco. Oh, Macon, I expect better from you. Oh dear. Oh dear. Slap on the wrist for you, Macon. My God. But yeah, no. The rumor that Checo was potentially gonna, that he's basically going to retire. That this executive said that he'd made the decision because he can't get a seat for 24, so he's decided to look elsewhere. I don't think so. Cheers, Steve. Thanks for coming in, Steve. Thank you. Yeah, I think Checo will look to exercise his 24 contract purely as not to stay at Red Bull for any longer, but purely to see if he can get a drive for 25. If Andretti do get in, I think 25 would be their first season. So yeah, he could be a really good option for that team to bring a lot of financial backing, and then you plonk him alongside perhaps a Colton Herta. That could be a good option for Andretti if they did get in. The Reddit article was very secondhand. Yeah, I thought that too, Macon. There was just something about it that didn't sit right with me. Look, it could be that maybe somebody's heard something from somewhere and they've decided to relay that. But until I see it from Checo, I'm not going to believe it. I think Checo. Checo wants to get P2 in the championship to give Red Bull their first ever 1-2. It never happened with Vettel and Webber. And I think that's something they're really keen on, to get that 1-2 in the championship. And Lewis is hunting them down. It's going to be very difficult. So we'll have to see how that one works out for them. But I think it's... until Checo says it himself, I wouldn't believe it too much. Yes, he hasn't been good enough this year. Far from it. He's been terrible. I think we need to just maybe pull back a little bit on that from his perspective, because I just don't think it's going to happen. It wouldn't surprise me if Red Bull are trying to fire him, because that's how Red Bull are. That's how they operate. You don't have to like it, but that's the way it is. It's unfortunate for them. I've got one thing I want to talk about, actually. Just bear with, because I'm gonna find the tweet. Let's see if I can find it. It was from Martin Brundle. I think you all know the one I mean. Here we go. So let's just go here. Yep. So as you can see here, it's races like Qatar and very rainy days which make F1 drivers look the heroes and athletes they are. Absolutely don't buy into the weak view. We shouldn't be putting them through this kind of challenge. Check out Senna in Brazil, Stewart at rainy Nürburgring, Lauda post-crash, etc., etc. Look, I don't agree with that from Martin. He is coming at it from the perspective of what he drove, and I get it. F1 drivers are superhuman. They really are. But the conditions that they were subjected to in that Grand Prix were unacceptable. They were driving at cockpit temperatures that could kill humans, almost verging on 50 degrees Celsius, I believe. That's unacceptable. And Williams did absolutely the right thing in pulling Logan Sargent out of that race. 100% did the right thing. They had to make a decision, and they did it. They really did. It was I thought from a welfare perspective, it was a very, very good move from Williams to make that decision for him. And did that kind of Spartan view from Brundle. I understand why he's saying it, because he drove in a much more dangerous era. I mean, F1 isn't any less dangerous than it was, but in terms of driver safety, I think he drove in an era where it was more likely you were going to have a fatal accident. And I just think you just have to look at Lance Stroll and Alex Albon getting out of the car. Just look at that. That was horrible to watch. I mean, I thought Lance was going to pass out there and then. It was vile, absolutely. And he was talking about passing out in corners as well. What is this? Well, it's just not good enough. It's unacceptable for drivers to be put through that and to be made to feel that and to be made to feel those conditions. It was horrible, really, really horrible to watch. And I hope F1 learns from this. And I hope that they never have to go through that again. And I hope that they can... I actually liked the FIA's response in this regard. That they were willing to take accountability for it and say, look, we note it. And we're going to look at ways of making things safer for them. I'd love to get your guys' thoughts on this as well. Because I was very concerned watching that. And I don't agree with Martin at all. Not at all. Akash, I think the danger does make them superheroes and adds to the appeal, but Qatar was clearly over the limit, basically doing 57 quali laps in that heat is too much. Yeah, absolutely. And that's on Pirelli as well. Pirelli, well, it's on Pirelli, but it's also on the FIA and FOM if you believe, if you are to believe Nico Rosberg, who said that apparently Pirelli raised this issue a while back, and they were fobbed off, which if that's the case, that's unacceptable as well, because this is your tyre supplier. This isn't some science boffin who's just gone, oh, I think that you might have some tyre problems from my analysis. It's not like a Twitter analyst or anything like that. This is your tyre suppliers saying there is danger. Like, come on. Amateur hour from F1 again. It's appalling. Absolutely dreadful from the FIA. They've got to do better. Like, this is where the FIA really pissed me off, because they're so reactive to things. I want to see them be proactive just once. Where if Pirelli had said to them, "We got a problem with tyres here," and they reacted to that, maybe by changing the saying to Pirelli, right, is it safer to run the hardest compounds, or is there something we can do to change the track ahead of time to make it safer? And it's just, what on earth are we playing at? I hope that we never see those scenes again, ever. And if we do, then the FIA need to be held accountable for that, because we can't have that. Because a driver could easily have been killed in that. Just heat exhaustion, dehydration could have killed them. It was disgusting. And that's my little rant on that over. I think the last thing to talk about really, and I'll come to, if you guys want to get some questions in, I'll try and answer them as best I can about anything F1 related. So just feel free to spam me with questions and I'll try and answer as many as I can. But track limits and MBS, kind of Mohammed Ben Sulayem coming out and saying that if tracks don't sort out their track limit issues, then they might lose their place on the calendar. I think... Oh, hang on. Rory Talks F1. If you're not following him, follow him. Legend. I think now F1 needs to pick their sprint races where there is external factors like high temperatures, like maybe Qatar shouldn't have a sprint race or move its calendar spot. The World Cup was held in winter. Yeah, I think... Well, if you think 21 was held a bit later as well, it was held towards the end of November, so... Yeah, I think if they've said that as well. The FIA have said that they want to hold the race at a later time of the year. October was clearly too soon. So yeah, I think that's a clear admission from the FIA that perhaps they knew they got it wrong, but the FIA will never admit outright that they got it wrong. So track limits. Mohammed Ben Sulayem, he says he wants less races, which I think is probably a good thing. I think we're getting to the limit now where it's starting to get too many. I'm not sure penalising tracks for having track limits is necessarily the right thing to do, but I think it's just incentivizing people to do the right thing and organisers to do the right thing, so as to ensure that we don't have the mess of Austria or Qatar. Because once you start getting on the track limits, it just isn't right. I mean, we had some healthy debates in spaces where people were like, well, maybe you don't have to have track limits in the race. I disagree with that. I think, there's the whole point is you're one of the 20 best drivers in the world. You should be able to keep a car within track limits. I know it's hard, and the punishments need to be there. I mean, Perez was just taking penalty after penalty after penalty. It was crazy. It's just a very rare win for Mohammed Ben Sulayem, because he normally when he opens his mouth, there should be sort of some kind of health warning that comes out saying, "Warning, you are about to hear nonsense." But yeah, I like the fact that he wants to get tough with people, and I think that was a good move by him. So yeah, it's sorry, my stream is telling me things and I don't quite know what's going on, but so it's just unfortunate really, for those tracks, but hopefully they'll get it sorted, and hopefully this intervention from MBS means that they can do things better. If there's anything I've missed, let me know. As I said, I'd love to hear from you. Ask me anything. I'm going to be online for about another 5-10 minutes, and I think we can we'll probably call it a day there. But Macon, shouldn't the drivers have a better idea of where they are versus the limits? Yes and no. I mean, the drivers will always say they're on the limit, because they'll always be like, "Oh no, it wasn't me." I think I don't think I think particularly with the larger tyres as well, it'll be harder for the drivers to judge where they are. I mean, we've seen people talk about software issues, not software issues. Talk about software being the way forward, and not overcomplicating things, which the FIA seem to do. I mean, we're supposed to be the peak of motorsport here, and the FIA just seem to always want to do things on the cheap. So I don't know. We'll just have to see. Akash, I think in Austria, Alonso and Russell had no infringements, and in Qatar, Max had none, so it's possible to keep it within track limits. Yeah, absolutely. And you've gone on. It's hard to see in the car. If there was gravel or something, there'd be none, but it's difficult. If there's just a white line, then it's a challenge to judge. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you think about it, they're not missing it by much. They're not missing it by much at all. They're really not. It's very, very hard. And we're talking minute fractions, but that's the whole point of top level sport. It's all about those tiny fractions. Rory, a lot of tracks in Europe and around the world cater for other series and have universal runoffs, but unless the FIA and F1 provide funding to adjust runoffs, gravel stops drivers taking liberty. Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Though I think in Qatar, I think part of the problem was the wind, particularly on that sprint quali. I think the wind was just knocking a lot of those cars' balance off, and I think the characteristics of that track as well kind of led to some of the track limit issues that we had, because if your car just wasn't planted, then it was difficult for them. Lane wandering sensors, my Porsche's yellow lights that go off if I drift over a lane. Just saying, I mean, I'm not sure how they can implement that into an F1 car, but that'd be quite funny. If you're on an onboard, let's say you're watching Lewis Hamilton, and it's like, you're drifting too far to the left, Lewis. You're drifting too far to the left. Could you imagine? I mean, actually, when I was learning to drive earlier this year, the car I was learning in had that, and I was learning on relatively like not sort of single lane roads, and the surface was quite uneven, and sometimes you just drift slightly to the left because you're trying to avoid a pothole or something, or or not go into a curb and it's like, oh my god, you know, the car just screaming at you. So yeah, and the curves were a factor too. Yeah, the curves were a massive factor. I mean, we've seen sausage curbs cause havoc. I mean, we're going to Austin next weekend, and yeah, we've seen what happens there. Crazy times. So yeah, the curbs were definitely an issue. But then obviously they had to change the track limits for Saturday, which then the drivers had got their eye on the Friday, and then that became pointless because everything changed. So yeah, I don't know. It's techie, you know. To quote my man Cameron, it's techie. Yeah. Sorry, just checking in. Oh, hang on, more comments. Bike tracks. Yeah, Macon, that's a very good point. That Lucelle circuit was built with MotoGP in mind, more so than F1, and I think they kind of just adapted it to fit F1. Yeah, F1 cars need sensors, maybe a brief slowdown like a driving school. With F4 cars have track limit sensors. Oh, do they? Okay. Maybe you can implement it into F1, but maybe the F1 teams would be like, oh no, but it had too much weight to the car. Oh, you don't want to make our car any heavier. Yeah, so they get very pissy about that kind of thing, don't they? Like, actually, question for you all. For those of you that are here, I want you to put a 1 in the chat if you think Andretti will get in with FOM. We know they've got the FIA approval, but will they get that second layer of approval? I want to hear from you. I want you to let me know what you think about that. 1 if you think they will, 2 if you think they won't. I'll just have a quick sip of water. So Macon thinks they will. Akash as well. Okay, so you guys think they will get there? You think they will get in? Okay. 1, but through the legal processes, Rory. Steve K, welcome to the stream, by the way. Welcome. 1, but through the legal process. Yeah, I really hope that doesn't happen. I mean, the thing with Andretti is obviously, I think it's all going to come down to money, isn't it? The dilution fee and everything else, and how much the team's going to demand. Yeah, we'll have to see how that one goes on. Yeah, I'd really hope they don't have to go through the legal process. Yes, in the last few minutes, guys, by the way, usual reminders. Like, subscribe, really helps the growth of the channel. We're 2 away from 150, which I know is not a big milestone, but it'd be nice if we could get there before the end of the stream. And also, let me know if you want me to do more of these We Need to Talk lives, then I'll more than happily do that. And actually, let's spend the last few minutes just replugging this for a third time. Trill Sessions, it's a Twitter space which I am hosting alongside my brother-in-arms Cameron, and it's being done with Lucky Sons. If you don't know who Lucky Sons are, they were one of the teams rejected by the FIA, and the plan is to chat with Steve Price, who was here in the chat earlier. He's the Chief Content Officer of Lucky Sons, and Andy, who was he is the co-founder. There we go. Sorry, co-founder and Chief Commercial Officer. And they want to talk about Lucky Sons, get their vision across, because they're a team that want to do things differently. And having spoken to them online and offline, I like what they're about. I do. So Cameron and I are going to interview them tomorrow during this space, and then in the second half of the space, the plan is you guys are going to have Adam. You're going to ask questions and talk to them, and it doesn't have to be about them specifically. It can just be about general F1 things, because Steve and Andy are F1 fans just like us, and they want to be able to talk and chat about F1. Just a little caution. There are a few things they can't talk about because they're still under FIA process, so they won't be able to talk about that stuff specifically, or certain things. Yeah, you can ask them, and I think the answer will very simply, we can't talk about it. And you've just got to. I hope that you respect that from them. But yeah, guys. As I said, I'll be online for a few more minutes, and if you want to ask me anything, just have at it. Do let me know, because I'd love to. I do love chatting F1. It's one of my favourite things. Just going to listen to a quick voice note. I'll listen to that later. That's a long thing. I saw someone tweet imagining Russell and Verstappen in the same team. The drama on radio is on track, and the clash of personalities would be epic viewing. You know what? I would love to see that. Not in Red Bull though. I don't want to see it in a Red Bull. I'd rather see it in like a Mercedes or Ferrari or something. That would be unbelievable if that happened. Because I mean, I don't think they ever would be teammates, because I think that they were. I think that they would probably just punt each other off the road, but too many times. But neither one of them would want to play number 2. But yeah, and I think Max made his views perfectly clear on George, calling him Princess George and everything else. I thought Max behaved appallingly with that. I think the way he behaved with George was poor, particularly when you consider he's a world champion. You expect you hold your world champions to a slightly higher standard. Alan, are we going to get a better Merc next year? I hope so, Alan. I really hope so. I think the fact that James Allison is involved is a cause for optimism. I think he's somebody that, from the sounds of things, has given an impression of what is going on. Yeah, he understands the problems the car has. They know they can't fix them because of the cost cap. What we've got to remember about Merc right now is that they're driving a mule car. They're stuck between two concepts, and I think that we just need them to. We have to wait until next year, and I think if the car is still crap next year, then I think we as fans are going to start asking a lot of hard questions. And I think that we just have to wait. We've got to be patient. We've got to see out the end of this season. Unfortunately, there's not a lot we can do. We just got to hope that the team gets a good result, that George and Lewis don't hit each other again, that we can score points, that we can hold on to P2 in the constructors, and hope that Lewis can catch Checo and nab P2 in the drivers, because that would be incredible. Macon, when does Max act like a champion who cares what others think about it? Oh, he doesn't. That's one of the big problems I have with Max. He doesn't care. I think that's one of my big issues with him. I think what you see of Max in the paddock isn't necessarily who he is. I think he is a bit more chill than he makes out. But I'm not the biggest fan of him, and I was really disappointed when Max didn't speak out on the Checo comments from Marco. I think, look, I know it's difficult because he's he's not technically affiliated with the team. It's all complicated with that, but I just felt that Max as a world champion could easily have said, "Hey, look, this isn't right. This isn't right." But Max has failed to do that on a number of occasions. And when you're the world champion of your sport, there comes extra responsibility. I mean, Seb, Lewis, Jensen were all superb ambassadors for the sport. Michael as well. These guys were stunning ambassadors for the sport that, during their time as world champion, took it very seriously and realised that their words carried extra weight. And so when they spoke, you had that extra importance to you. Max has never really grasped that. Now, some people don't care. That's fine. But I think it's important for me that a world champion is somebody that can really represent their sport, and I just don't think Max is. Look, it's not what Max wants to do, and if that isn't what he wants to do, that's his decision. But when you have a world champion that people want to tune in for beyond the racing skills, that's something that maybe Liberty are missing. Akash, I think Max would rather fight the McLaren drivers than the Mercs, so I need the Mercs to be contenders. Yeah, I think Max would feel better with McLaren behind him and not Mercedes. I think McLaren, it's been so long since they're involved in a title fight. I mean, 2012 was really the last time they were anywhere near the title. So, yeah, I think, when you've got Russell and Hamilton bearing down on you in a Mercedes and the might of Mercedes, 8-time world champions who are on the rebuild, I still make Max favourite for 24. I still make him the big favourite for 24, but even if there's a title fight, but yeah, we'll have to see. Such a pity. He could be a voice of reason. He could really leverage his position beyond what he does. I like the fact that Max does sim racing, that he's not afraid to do sim racing. I think that's great. That's something I really like about Max. That he will just go out and do these sim races, and that is a good way to represent the sport. Finding ways of, because I don't know if so. I watch a lot of esports, and there's a channel called The Score Esports, which is corporate and everything else, and it's professional and blah blah blah. But by Max, he gets a lot of attention from that channel because he's the world champion doing esports. So that's something I really like about Max. Cryptic, hello, welcome. Max represents the younger crop. I think that's what you said. Oh, younger crowd. Lewis, Michael, and Jensen were all older guys. Well, not when Lewis won his first world title. Far from it. And I think, and certainly his first few titles with Mercedes, I would disagree with that. Now Lewis is definitely one of the elder statesmen, but early on in his career, and probably, I think maybe 2017, 2018, that's when he kind of flipped. But Lewis was the youngest world champion ever when he first won the title. So I don't agree with that entirely, but they're definitely different generations for sure. But yeah, no, as I said, Max gets attention by doing the sim racing, and that's a really good way of doing it. I mean, quite a lot of the drivers have streamed or streamed in the past. I mean, I watched a stream. This was last year. I had COVID at the time as well, so I was stuck in my sick bed, couldn't do anything. And Pierre Gasly was streaming. What was it, World of Warcraft or something? I popped in for a few minutes, but that was quite funny. Sim racing is a way to reach younger crowd. Good point. Yeah, great. I mean, we got F1 esports, right? How cool would it be if you say, right, the world champion has to go up against the actual Formula One world champion Max Verstappen? In an exhibition race, as a surprise. I mean, there's this thing. I play a lot of fighting games, right? And there's a thing where if you win a tournament, they'll say, "Oh, we've got a final boss for you." And you get this legendary player come out. There was one in France years ago, and they brought out this legendary Korean player in Tekken 7, and he had to play against the champion of this particular tournament, and obviously the legendary Korean guy won. But could you imagine you've just grinded for weeks? It's like, I'm the esports world champion. Like, say Lucas Blakely defends his title, and there's like, by the way, Lucas, stay in the factory, stay in the car. You're gonna race Max right now. And like at Zandvoort or something, or something stupid like that. But that'd be so cool to see that. I'll see an exhibition race between world champion in both disciplines. That'd be kind of cool. I'd love to see that. Would love to see that. Cool. Well, we've gone for 90 minutes, guys. So I think I'm gonna call it a day there. But thank you to everyone who's tuned in. I think we reached a peak of 11 at one point, which was mega cool. We've got 14 likes on the video. For a first stream, I thought this has gone rather well. Hang on, what were you saying here, Cryptic? I got to race Charles Leclerc and Valentino Rossi on a Assetto Corsa Competizione back when everyone was on lockdown. It was quality. Yeah, man, I can imagine that shit would have been cool. Yeah. Racing Valet as well. Bloody hell, that's cool. Oh, have you guys actually, have you guys seen the video on Twitter that Rossi put out there? And he was talking through his helmet collection, and he's got like 2 helmets from Lewis. He's got a couple from Michael. He's even got one from Seta Gibernau, who was like his biggest rival. I mean, that's a flex and a half, isn't it? It's just like, I kicked your ass for all these years, but can I have your helmet for my collection? And he actually did it. That's awesome stuff. Yeah, Rossi, what an absolute legend he is. Thanks, Bax. I'm waiting on hearing you belt out Carmen. Okay, Macon, story time with BaxtyB here. This isn't F1 related. So for those of you that don't know, this obviously is not my day job. I'm actually a professional opera singer. That's my primary job. It's like the first thing you see on my Twitter bio, which, by the way, you can find my Twitter page in the description below. The first opera I did when I was at uni, I joined the Opera Society, and they were doing Carmen that year. And so yeah, they were doing Carmen, and I was like 18, 19, and I got cast as Don Jose because I could do it. So anyway, I had no idea what I was doing, and it was I did well, but it wasn't perfect, not by any stretch, and I made a lot of mistakes. I won't go into details what the mistakes are, but there were some embarrassing mistakes in there when I look back on it now, because I've been doing this for nearly 10 years now, and it's like, jeez Louise. But yeah, Carmen was the first opera I ever did. I might make a recording of the Flower Song at some point, because yeah, that's one of my favourite arias to sing. So yeah, but yeah, professional opera singer, and Carmen was the first opera I ever did, which was slightly scary. When you think about it, like 19 years old, and you're doing like, yeah, just unreal, absolutely unreal. But yeah, no guys, I'm going to call it a day there. Thank you to everyone that's tuned in, to Macon, Cryptic, Rory, Akash, Alan, 2 Steves, Cameron, of course. Last plug for this. Tomorrow, 9 o'clock UK time, Trill Sessions with Lucky Sons. If you want to hear from a team that went through the FIA application process, this is your chance to find out a little bit about that process. Probably not too much, because there's probably things they can't say, but yeah, and you get to ask them questions in the second half of the space as well. So yeah, do absolutely come along and listen to this. If you want to... Yeah, if you want to ask me anything F1 related, find me on Twitter, BaxtyB. And if you like what I've done here and you want to see more of these lives, let me know, and just hit the subscribe button. Yeah, it's not like Twitch; it's free. But it's a useful tool for growing the channel. I might see if I can fit one of these in next week. Might be a bit difficult, but we'll see. I might do something in and around the US Grand Prix. So. Obviously, timings for me over here will be very unsociable. But yeah, guys, thank you all so much. I want you to all stay safe. You know, obviously, world's a screwed up place right now, so please all stay safe. I'll speak to you all soon. Please do join the space tomorrow with myself, Cameron, Andy, and Steve. And yeah, peace. See you later.